quick topic, different types of topics, And by the looks of it, it seems like everything's heating up. This is CNN. It says CNN News, and the title of this article says Mexico wanted most wanted drug leaders killed in the military. It's well, so operation as classic clashes erupt in U.S. tourists to shelter in place. And basically a few cars got lit on fire, and I guess they did like a little riot to where they just burnt shit and throwing up cars. But I'm gonna just read a little bit. It says El Mincho, the powerful long pursued head of the cartel, the New Generation Cartel, Jalisco New Generation Cartel, and one of the world's most wanted traffickers, died following the Mexican military operations on Sunday, handling the country of consequential victory as it took to slow tangible results to the Trump administration. And I guess this is the officer that led the charge against the new generation of cartels. A former police officer led a new generation cartels as it became one of the most powerful and ruthless criminal organizations in Mexico, according to the U.S. Enforcement Administration. Violence erupted in several states. In Mexico, active security forces from multiple federal branches of Mexico military carried out the operations in the town of Tapalapa in the western state of Jalisco, following officials said suspected members of the organized crime unleashed a wave of violence following the operations, torching buses and business while clashing with the security force. The U.S. Department urged Americans nationals in parts of Mexico to seek shelter and to remain in residences or hotels until further notice. And I'm stopping right there. If the government really wanted to, they could get rid of these cartels, man. They would have been got rid of the cartels, but it's all a part of the plot. But as I say this, that we're in these times to where a big major black swan event could occur, man. And a lot of things is happening to where it seems like they're turning the camera to this new enemy, to this new unknown enemy, that could come from different directions. And the name of these enemies are the Teals group, and a lot of people on the internet and the internet is making this known, as we know that Iran and the U.S., they got a meeting on Thursday for a talk, man. And it seemed like it's seeming like, they just have armies. Of course, Iran have nukes, and China and Russia backing them up. But The U.S. have armies right at their border, man. And it seems like they're just getting nowhere, man. It's just like they're getting closer in combat, but really, they're getting nowhere, man. And ultimately, it just leads to war and chaos, man. But the title of this video, I'm not gonna read into it, but too much. But it says Iran and the U.S. To meet on Thursday for a talk, man. And they're just meeting for a talk, but it's like we hear about Iran and the U.S. like constantly, man. It's like they get nowhere, man. They butt heads, man. And it says here Iran and the U.S. will hold a third round of nuclear talks on Thursday in Genevieve. Osman, foreign ministry, said on Sunday amid growing concerns about the risk of military conflict between the long-term adversities. The U.S. has built up its military presence in the Middle East, with Donald Trump warning on Thursday that really bad things will happen if no deal is reached to solve this long-term dispute over Tehran nuclear program. And to be honest, man, I don't see Iran backing down, man. I think Iran has been bullied long enough against the U.S. military presence, man. And then not just that, we're hearing rumors, man. We're hearing rumors of wars, man, and rumors that China and Russia are getting into this, man. And so forth, man. So I see Russia not backing down, and we already know Trump. He's put in place as a puppet, and Trump has to come here and act like he has leisure and might, which that doesn't matter when there's nukes up on the table, man. And these Iranians, man, they don't got nothing to lose, man. They're ready to go all in or nothing, man. And really, they're just tired of you damn devils, man. Your kingdom is up, man. But, this could very well lead to that major event, man. Something happened, a retaliation, and they got a new enemy on the streets, labeling their own American people T groups, man. And they can shut this whole bitch down like they did when that juice came out, man. So I'm not surprised, but a lot of stuff is happening to where they could very well use that under their belt, man. And we know that they're gonna come down with something, man. According to Revelation chapter 12, they're running out of time, man. The kingdom is running short. Days are getting quicker. They're running out of time, man. They already got a military presence built up in the Middle East. So the only thing that they can do is come down with having great wrath, because they know that they have a short amount of time,
Seven. You were looking at a vehicle heading toward this gate that's about to crash through it. And they're saying that this is part of an attack on a substation in Nevada. The Boulder City Police Department receiving a call about a car crashing through the secured gate at the LA Department of Water and Power substation. It's located at 875 El Dorado Drive. This took place around 10 a.m. Thursday. The suspect, Dawson Noah Maloney, in the middle here, is from New York. We have counterterrorism units on the scene. They're saying that he drove his Nissan Sentra from New York to this area. Why he targeted this exact spot, yet to be seen, but he drove the car through the gate, trying to crash it into the substation itself. He got stopped when he hit all these wheels of wire that you can see in the image on the right. They go on to state that he had different chemicals in the car, along with different weapons, multiple shotguns, and that he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound on the scene. You can see one bullet hole in the windshield. But they say that he was holding a shotgun when they discovered him, and he was deceased, obviously, and was targeting this location. Further research into this shows that they come up with books and manuals that they say is linked to violence and terrorism. So they're charging this individual in this, even though he's deceased, they're charging this whole thing off as being a terrorism-related event, targeting the grid, trying to attack it, to take out the substation in this area. So they also went to the Boulder Motel El Rancho and did a search there. And we're waiting for more information pertaining to this. But this is not the first time this has happened. I've reported on substations being attacked and targeted many times over the past few years. It keeps happening. This is the latest. I'll update with more information as I get it. Follow me on X and join me for the live streams going live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on W77. Much love.
We're seeing the build up of something about to happen. It's not far fetched. This is greatly up on the table for the EDCU. So label everybody a T, and at this point, man, the American people, all the way up to our apostles, man. We just been waiting, before the American people, man. Our apostles, we just been waiting for our apostles and down. We just been waiting for him to break loose, man. And we're here, and they're just stalling, man. They're stalling, trying to keep their kingdom afloat. But we see the decrease of his kingdom. A lot of people are losing jobs. Prices is rising. We're here, man. The economy in America is bad, man. People are getting laid off. They're getting fired. They're leaving. They're quitting. Because they're really, the American people is tired of working, man. Working a job that doesn't benefit them, that doesn't treat them well, that really doesn't care about their employees. The American people is tired, man. But how much the brotherhood that been saying the same thing, over and over and over, to these people, man. Us have to deal with different types of situations, different types of events, that happens in our lives, how much more us that we were sitting back and we have to endure all this, and not just endure, but tell the American people, and they're finally waking up, that America isn't how it was back then, I remember, back then, America was like a adventurous state, some, you brothers, remember when your grandparents and your parents was back then going to different types of ruins and stuff. They got pictures of them being in down, I don't know, in Africa and somewhere in Egypt, man, messing with the pyramids. They took a picture, and the American life was everybody traveling, everybody moving around, it was more like just exploring, man. You know that those days are gone, man. The American people, we don't, they don't, and myself, man, we don't even have money to afford our daily necessities no more. We're barely making it. We're barely scrapping by, man, paycheck to paycheck. You know, and the American dream is basically dead, man. And it's been dead ever since the first lockdown, man. And we know that, Fauci and them, they got something planned. Bill Gates, saying that you'll own nothing and be happy, and that if this lockdown didn't get people's attention, the other one will, and so there's, the dominoes being put in place, but eventually something big is gonna happen, and they're all gonna have to come tumbling down, and we can see this build up of them coming up with something big, man, and not just the Tia's house, man, but Civil War could, is still on the table, man. And once the American people get sick and tired of this, man, they gonna start tearing up shit, man. And they're only seeing, man. They're only seeing, man, because what can they do against the government, against the people in office, man? They can't really, they can't do nothing, man. All these files and stuff shows you that the American people is powerless, man. Which they thought tooth and nail that their forefathers gave them rights and amendments and whatnot, but their rights is slowly being taken from them, and it's basically already taken from them, The government has full control of these people, man. These people don't have no power, they don't have no money, they're barely scraping by, so basically it's the rich against the poor, man. And the rich against the middle class and the poor class, man. And the rich stays richer while the poor gets poorer, man. And that's been the cycle of America, man. And these elites and these high level these your Trumps, your JT Vance, I think that's his name. But they're growing in power and wealth while you stay poor and you're struggling out here, trying to scrape by, man. But it goes to show you, man, America was never for us to stay here and to live it up. Eventually, all hell was gonna break loose. The MOTB was gonna put in place, and eventually we was just gonna go home. We was never meant to stay here as a people, as a race, and live in America for centuries. No, man. America was meant to be blown up by nuclear missiles, and we was ultimately meant to go back to where our home is, man. We was ultimately meant to be here for a certain amount of time, go through our chastisement, go through our suffering in this land for our transgression against our power, man, and then to be brought back, to come out of slavery, man. We was never meant to stay in slavery, man, and our chains is slowly unbuckling, is slowly loosening, as this place goes down, we get stronger and stronger, man, and people can see it, man. You got Edomites out here that's just losing their minds, man, because the men of the Lord, they've been on highways and byways telling these Edomites that their kingdom is done for, man, and not just their kingdom is done for, they're telling them that they have no spot in the new world to come, man. They have no, you gotta think about it, they have no spot in the kingdom of heaven, man. And not just that, they have no salvation, man. So these heathens and these Edomites, man, they're getting evil, if that's even a word. They're getting evil out here, man. You know, they're trying to do everything in their power to make sure the men of the Lord, you know, and the enlightened ones, you know, they fall. The 144, they fall, man. You know, because they have none to lose, man. You know, we're telling it to their faces, man, that they're gonna have to watch their children, their grandparents, their sisters and fathers, you know, perish, man. You know, and ultimately themselves perish, man, without no mercy or without no salvation, man. You know, and compared to how much the Edomites want to relate to the black man's, you know, Jake's poverty, man. You know how much they want to relate, how much you say you're broke, and they're like, man, I'm in the same boat. The economy's bad, man. Compared to the white man's wealth and Jake's wealth, man, it's not the same. You know, Jake and the white man came from two different backgrounds, man. You know, I mean, just look at the kids, how the kids are raised, man. You'll see the Edomite kids running around the damn store, you know, loud, obnoxious, not really trained. They're screaming to get over here, and then you see Jake, you know, the Jake kid, quiet as hell, know not to touch anything, know not to be loud and obnoxious, man. You know, because they'll get their ass whipped. You know, there was, you know, every Jake been through this. You know, at least, you know, your parents before you get into the store telling you not to touch anything, not to say anything. You just give me in and give me out. I don't got no money right now. So compared to how these Edomites were raised and the black man and Jake was raised, man, it's totally different, man. And even our financial wealth is totally different, man. They got wealth from their grandpa and his grandpa, you know, that used to be a slave owner, man. You know, now the grandpa works on a farm and he got a little bit of wealth he can spread it beyond his through his generation, man. You know, we got Papa over here. You know, he owns a farm. You know, but his granddaddy and his great granddaddy, they was ultimately slaves and whatnot, and they made their money off of the backs of the Israelites, man. Jake, you know. And this is what they don't want to tell you, man. You know, and they'll try to manipulate Jake, you know, and try to make Jake feel bad for not trying to be a hard worker in his society, because really they need us, man. Without us, there wouldn't be America, you know. And that's the hard truth that they can't. That's the pill that they won't swallow, you know. Without us, there wouldn't be no America, man, you know. But you know, at the end, and when it's all said and done, this place is gonna fall, man. You know, and a lot of people don't like what we're saying, but it's the truth, man. We're telling them the truth, man. You know, we're not out here lying to these people and telling them America is gonna live on and giving them a church and pastor preacher's delusion, man. No, man, we're telling these people straight to their face, they're gonna die, their kids gonna die, their parents gonna die, man. You know, and there's no repenting, man. You know, and ultimately, they really don't care if you was in slavery, man, because you know, in their minds, you know, it hasn't happened to them. You know, of course, you got some that wants to be sentimental, and it was a bad thing, you know, our parents, and you know, it's just bullshit, man. You know, We want reparation. We want reparations, man. We want vengeance, man, for what you have done to our people, man. You know, and for Jake not to feel the same way and to live it up and to want to be buddy with these Edomites, man. It's a slap in our ancestors' face and what we went through, man. You know, and what these wicked people have done to our people, man. You know, it's a slap in our face. It's a slap in our ancestors' face, and not just that. You know, we've been through a lot on this side, man. You know, and these people they still haven't treated us right, man. You know, treated our people right, man. You know, they still pursued us, man. Even though the chains was off, they decided to, instead of us physically chaining them up and whooping them and taking their kids and just being a damn demon physically, we're gonna do it mentally, man. You know, and they're still doing the same thing, but it's less physical now, man. You know, it's more mentally now. You know, it's more psychology warfare, man. You know, and not just that, they use all types of warfare on Jake out here today, man. You know, different types of warfare, man. You know, instead of them just giving us our land and giving us some stuff to start our own, you know, they keep us bondage here, man. They keep Jake, they keep a little bit of sellout Jakes, man, to influence the younger Jakes to think that money is really important, man. You know, and the money is the least of all of our what we need, man. You know, yeah, of course, money gets you by, man, but you know, these rappers, these sellouts, man, and they're gonna pay for selling out. But these sellouts make it seem like money is just everything, you know. Which, I mean, it was all set up from the beginning, but you know, man, we're in modern day slavery, man. We still haven't got out of slavery. You know, we still we still have the chains on from our ancestors, man. Not physically, but spiritually, man. You know, we're still serving out our captivity that our ancestors back then thought and wanted to get out of, man. You know, and you know, I give the devil credit, man, because that's smart, man. You know, making it seem like the people are out of slavery. You know, what's a good slave, man? The best slave to have is the slave that doesn't know he's a slave, man. And how could we do that? Is to take the chains off and make sure he's mentally and spiritually debunked, man. You know, through doctrine. You know, and the slave can run around and think he's free and do whatever he wants, but then, you know, on the outside, you know, the outside of his mind, you know, he's still a slave, man. You know, and he's not going nowhere, he's not building, he's not doing nothing, man. He's still a slave, man. You know, and it's smart. But, you know, at the end, man, you know, this place is gonna get what it deserves, man. You know. I just wanted to bring that out real quick. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. Let's get advantage of us, for we're not ignorant of the devices, man. I'm saying devices, man. We know that this devil has some up his sleeve, and he's about to show it, man. You know, he's about to show it, man. And you know, this has just been years that this damn devil will come up with something, and then everybody will be worried, and then he'll diffuse it, man. And then he'll come up with something, everybody be worried, and then he'll diffuse it, man. You know? But it's coming to a point to where something's gonna have to give, man. You know, we get closer and closer each day to Yahweh Shai is coming, man, and they know it too. They know that they just can't bullshit anymore. They're gonna have to eventually, come with it, man. And try to deceive the people into taking that mark of the beast, man. That's surely coming, man. That's really already here, but it's not mandated yet, you know. But we're at the point, man, to where they're gonna have to go ahead and do this thing, man. They're not gonna have time to play games and wait 2 to 3 years and whatnot, and let's slowly push this thing and get the people used to it and whatnot. They're gonna have to force the people, man. Through tactics, through psychology, warfare, through physical warfare, man. Through showing that, chemical warfare, probably showing that people are dying out here. There's T attacks, civil unrest. So they're gonna have to deceive the people, man, and we know that most of these people out here, man, they love their lives in America, man. It's something that irks my soul, man, to see a proud ass 2/3 Israelite with his chest poked out, being the manager over something, while having a white boss, a white Edomite or a male boss, that they're working under, but they're having a prideful look, on you. There's something about that irks my soul, man. Because really we're not even supposed to I'm just gonna stop it right there, man. But I hope you guys are praying, man. To Yahweh Bashim and Rashad Bashim and Papa Dash, everyone understand others that join us, who is pushing the truth without truth and sincerity. Inshallah.